and the president could have pulled out. I have so much respect for Biden pulling out.
Joe Biden said, come.
You say it was bold of Biden to pull out. Totally agree 100%. I applaud Biden for pulling out. I don't have a problem with Biden pulling out. I have a problem with the way that he pulled out. He pulled out like an amateur. We were sold that he was this 47-year politician. He had the chops to do foreign policy. He was a vice president. He was terrible. And he lied to the American people, and he lied to the world community, and didn't even stay in contact with our allies, so much so that he got censured in the UK by parliamentarians and MPs that were furious with the fact that he let them holding the bag as well. What this guy did is this, right? He said that we should close down Bagram Air Base. He told the American people that the troops that we had there and the training that we had from the Afghan security forces would be enough to, which, by the way, they were 2-1 outnumbering the Taliban and had superior firepower, etc. He said that they would be able to hold for a long time. And instead, what he did was within 3 days, we were overran. He relied on the Taliban for defense. The same Taliban that released ISIS from the prison in Bagram Air Base that then bombed our troops. Every step of the way, Biden's decision on how, not pulling out, but how he pulled out, was a disaster that showed our allies and enemies that we have no idea as a country what we're doing militaristically anymore.
So a lot of this is kind of vague, and I can't really think. When you say we pulled out like an amateur, I mean, we had to get our forces out, and we did that. That was the goal, and that is what we did. I don't know what part of this is like an amateur. You mentioned saying that he believed that the ANI would be able to hold for a long time. I mean, of course, he said that. The president is not going to say, just letting you guys know, ANI is fucked. As soon as we leave, that shit is going to collapse. Of course, he's not going to say that in a country that we've been trying to nation build for, the better part of 2 decades. I don't see him ever making that statement publicly, regardless of what they thought behind the scenes. I think most people knew that the ANI was going to fall to the Taliban. Maybe not in 3 days. Maybe they thought it would be 3 months. But, I don't think there was very much faith left in that government to be able to hold its own, regardless of troop numbers, for a variety of reasons. I mean, we already had an agreement in place with the Doha Agreement in terms of us having to pull out. And if not, the Taliban would begin to escalate attacks. It's hard to run counterfactuals, but I mean, if we stay longer and the Taliban begins to increase their attacks, then what? Now, this is why I have so much respect for Biden pulling out the way that he did, despite the fact that it was a little bit messy. Let's say that we run it. Let's say that we say, okay, we're just going to draw down numbers a little bit. Right? Well, let's say that you draw down those numbers and the Taliban that you've negotiated with say, hey, you're not pulling your part of the agreement. Fuck you. And now we start getting attacked. Let's say that we have one bad attack on U.S. troops there. And let's say, hypothetically, 100 U.S. troops die. Okay? If that happens, do we know what comes next? 2 words. It's a troop surge. Abso-fucking-lutely. You're going to see headlines every day, Taliban killing American troops. ISIS is going to be thrown in there because it's all Middle Easterns are the same to the United States. We're going to have another troop surge in Afghanistan, and we're going to be there for another fucking decade. Abso-fucking-lutely. It sucks what had to happen, but I truly don't believe there was any other way that the president could have pulled out. We couldn't have done a slow drawdown over time. We couldn't have secretly told people, by the way, we're pulling out, because obviously that would have shown an undermining of the ANI. It would have shown that we didn't have any confidence in them, which we probably didn't, but you can't publicly show that. I don't see there being any other way that we could have left Afghanistan other than to just pull out and say, oh, good luck, sink or swim.
No, I totally disagree. And let me explain why. First,
ANA, sorry.
Yeah, I knew exactly what you meant. I'm not like some of these leftists you debate that will jump on that. I'm not wearing corn today either, will you? Anyways, you said, of course he said that, right? Well, just to go back to our COVID discussion briefly. Yeah, I actually defended Biden on that. Right? Of course you're going to, as the leader, sound optimistic. Same's true of Trump with COVID, which is why when Woodward came out with his quotes, you had Fauci say, actually, the way Trump was talking was in line with what we were advising him to say, because you don't want a leader to come out and say, we're fucked. That's it. Right? So just that quick point on there. But when you talk about your hypothetical, first off, I'm not talking about saying well, I'm Monday morning quarterbacking and picking out little things. They could have did this and this. It's real simple. You have certain assets in a country. You have our weapons and things like that. You have the people that use those weapons, the military. Their job is to defend the people that we have there that are American citizens or that are our allies. And then they're to train the security forces, right? You don't bring back the people tasked with defending before the people that need defended. You don't bring them back before you bring the military equipment back. Bagram Air Base was so much more secure that it would have been the optimal place to evacuate all Americans, all people. I forget what the actual designation is, but maybe you remember what it was. But the people that we considered of special status because they helped our military as translators and things like that. Because it turns out all of these people that we evacuated from Afghanistan, only a very small amount of them were actually the people that allied with us in that way, that had that special designation. So the best way to get all those people out would have been to hold Bagram Base, get everyone out, then bring back the military equipment that we could, and then finally bring back the military people. Instead, we did it in the opposite way. And here's your hypothetical. You're like, I concede that if there was a bad attack, that it would have been really bad and it could have led to a troop surge. But that's non-unique anyways, because we had to trust the Taliban. The Biden administration trusted the Taliban in order to get us out. So the Taliban acting is the way they did to say, well, they could have decided to be more insane and just attack us for whatever reason, when in reality, they just wanted us out, seems like nonsense. In fact, discussions with the Taliban that we've now seen showed that the Taliban was totally like, listen, if you want to have control around the airbase there, I forget the name of the city where they were withdrawing from Afghanistan, they said, that's fine. Go ahead, the U.S. could have defense. The U.S. said, no, we'll rely on the Taliban for security, right? So the argument is, yes, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback, but I'm saying something real specific. You don't bring out the defenders before the people you're defending. And the results are evident for everyone to see. We could have pulled out in a similar time frame if we would have kept Bagram Air Base and then pulled out of it last. Instead, we allowed the ISIS troops to be freed. We allowed the most secure air base to be overran. We allowed billions of dollars of technology and weapons to be given to who we are told are bloodthirsty heathens that are going to butcher women and children around the area. Now we've just created one of the largest air forces in the world, and it's bloodthirsty maniacs that we were told we had to fight for 20 years.
So in terms of the COVID discussion, I wouldn't compare the reason why I was irritated with Trump's public positions on the coronavirus stuff wasn't because he was trying to not cause a panic or sound good. It was because there wasn't anything being done in the background. If you wanted a totally different discussion on the coronavirus stuff, it actually wouldn't have been Trump saying there's no problem. If Trump was saying, listen, guys, there's no problem, it won't be a deal, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But in the background, they were working hardcore on getting mass testing out, which the United States lagged on. They were working hardcore on getting PPE out, making sure that there wasn't a shortage of ventilators, hospital beds, whatever the states needed. If that coordination was happening behind the scenes in a massive level, while Trump was saying publicly, hey guys, it won't be a big deal, blah, 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 I would probably be a little bit warmer to Trump taking that stance. Whether or not Biden is saying there is going to be a peaceful pullout and nothing bad will happen or not isn't really going to make a difference in our pullout. If anything, him doing the other type of messaging and undermining the ANA might even look worse on the world stage. But it's not like in the background, like Biden could have done something better to improve the way that we pulled out of that country. If you talk about how and again, I think a lot of people it's a tough situation to be in. And maybe if we try to play hindsight, maybe we can say there's something different, but I don't even think so. We talk about bringing back military equipment. What are we supposed to do? Are we telling the ANA okay, listen guys, we're going to be honest with you. You guys are dog shit. You're not going to be able to hold this shit. We're jacking everything. We're taking it all back. Good luck. Imagine if we did that. Well, now Rob Noor would be arguing with Destiny saying, this is a catastrophic failure. The United States stole all the equipment. We spent 20 years training the ANA. Now we took all of our equipment back. How are they supposed to defend themselves against the Taliban? This was horrible. Now the bloodthirsty Taliban own the entire country because we disarmed the people that were supposed to defend the Afghanistani government. They can't do it, right? That would have been the exact conversation. 100% that we'd be having right now. You have to leave them with the equipment that they have. You have to leave them with the stuff that we've armed them with. And all you can really do is hope for the best. If it's your country, you want to defend it, then good luck. But if you can't, we're not going to sit here and steal everything. Same thing with this idea of well, we should have evacuated all the translators, all the visa holders, everybody first. Again, you can do that, but what does it look like again on the world stage, or even more specifically to the ANA? We're okay, you guys are cool, you got this. All right, guys, you need to get the fuck out of here. We need to get all the visa holders, all the SPIs, everybody has to get the fuck. Okay, no. You guys have it. I'm sure. Get the fuck on the plane. This shit is gonna fucking go down in 3 fucking days, guys. Right? It's again, and I am acknowledging that it sucks and it's shit, but this was one of those hard things that had to happen. I don't think there was ever going to be a better way that we could have pulled out of Afghanistan, because every other circumstance involves so many other situations that could go horribly wrong. And then on the latter point that you say, and I actually have a big issue with this, people like to describe the Taliban as insane and we're bloodthirsty or blah, blah, blah. They're not insane. They have their goals. When you talk about relying on them for security, we're going to be honest. The Taliban wanted the United States out of there, okay? For whatever we want to say, policy failures, whatever, the United States kills a lot of motherfuckers. We can go over there and fuck shit up. The Taliban did not want another U.S. troop surge. There is a reason why they didn't take advantage of our hasty retreat to try to blow up Americans or attack people, or why ISIS was the one that did it and not the Taliban. Because the Taliban was like, hey, you guys want to leave? Yeah, we'll fucking cover your shit. Get the fuck out. We're actually totally fucking happy for you guys to get the fuck out. I think in that case, the Taliban was probably the best force in the entire fucking planet to secure the U.S. retreat because nobody wanted us out of that country more than the fucking Taliban did. So I don't think that relying on them for security, even if there was a mishap with the ISIS attack, I don't think that was the worst thing in the world. We both have a similar objective there, which is to have the United States pull out of the area. In terms of creating the largest air force in the world, or not the largest one, but a huge air force with a lot of technology that we left to the Taliban. Yeah, you know what? We did it in Iraq with ISIS as well. These were wars that were started 2 decades ago. Like, what the fuck can you do? All I can say is thank fucking God that Biden got out. It sucked, and he had to eat shit for it a little bit. I think we might have even argued about this before, though, and I think I even said on the political level, this probably won't matter in a few months, even though this was making headlines for like a week. And I think for the most part, I don't think people are going to remember this come election time. We don't talk about it much anymore, but we'll see. So yeah, it sucked. It was hard, but anybody trying to armchair that it could have gone different ways isn't thinking about like, well, what would that have looked like? What other external situations could that have caused? And I think we got out about as cleanly and efficiently as we could have.
But see, you contradict yourself, because the second point you make there, I'll respond to it first, where you say, well, the Taliban wanted us out, so we could rely on them for security. But earlier in your previous answer, you said, well, if we would have took our time longer, what would we have done if the Taliban would have bombed us? Well, the reality is they wouldn't have. They just said, okay, good, just get out of here. If that means you're going to take 30 more days, fine. So, like, I don't understand your previous hypothetical, because it seems that we would have known, and by we, I mean the Biden administration would have known, the Taliban wants us out, and as long as we meet some sort of time frame, they're going to say, okay, just get the fuck out. Like, that seems to be buttressed by the fact that we now know that the Taliban was like, how do you want to do this? You guys want to run security? You want us to do it? Like, they weren't, like, being super picky, like, no, we were in charge. Right? Now, we do know that they did free the ISIS prisoners that ended up attacking us, and whether it be through corruption or incompetence, they allowed that attack to occur on U.S. troops. But the bigger point's your first point, and I've heard this argument over and over, where it's like, well, what were we supposed to do? Send the signal to the ANA or whatever that we were pulling out, and then that would have discouraged them. And then, so, okay, what would the end consequence of that been? Oh my God, if we discouraged the ANA, the Afghan security forces, whatever they're called, they might have been overwhelmed in, say, 3 days. Whoops, that's exactly what happened. But now, why? But that's on the Biden administration. They should have known. It is on the Biden administration that they should have had an accurate assessment, at least very close, at how likely the ANA was to succeed. You even admitted everybody knew they were going to lose. They knew it. The ANA knew it. The president of Afghanistan knew it. Biden knew it. So why would you make the decision to arm the very people that we've been at war at for 20 years? Because you say, well, we don't want to slightly demoralize the ANA. So we have to keep Americans there. We have to close down Bagram Air Base. We can't bring back our allies because we don't want to demoralize the group that we think is going to be fucked in 2 weeks anyways. That makes no sense. And as bad of a situation it is that the Taliban could have overran, say, in 2 days instead of 3 days, it's infinitely better than arming them to the teeth in the way we did, than stranding Americans, than stranding our allies, right? So there is an easy way. If we wouldn't have gotten rid of Bagram Air Base, all of this could have been accomplished without any of the negatives. Now, obviously, any random thing could happen. We would have dealt with that if it occurred. But clearly, the best strategy would have been to keep Bagram Air Base, to pull out the people we were defending, to pull out our allies, to pull out our equipment, and then to pull out our troops. That was the order we should have done it. We didn't. And if you say, well, that's just because Biden didn't know. Well, that's on Biden too. That's on Biden and his generals as well then. If they didn't know that the ANA was going to collapse in such a quick time, and so that's why they decided to leave these weapons there and to leave Bagram Air Base, that's on them.
Okay, so first of all, when you're saying like the Taliban wanted us out in one instance but wouldn't want us in the other, because if we would draw down troops and have some extended presence there, then it is likely that eventually the Taliban would escalate against us because it would be in violation of the agreement that we made to leave. As part of the Doha Agreement was that we were going to leave completely Afghanistan. Not that we were going to draw down troops to 2,500 soldiers, but that we were going to completely extradite ourselves from that area. So if we try to maintain some extended presence, at some point the Taliban might be like, okay, well, fuck it, we're going to start bombing you guys, right? We don't know if that would have been the case if we would have done a drawdown, if it would have taken longer, right? Maybe they wouldn't have. Maybe they would have been okay with an extended stay. I don't know why they would have negotiated a prior agreement contradicting that. When you say that we've been at war with them and we don't want to arm them, with all due respect to the Afghanistan people, we're not really at war with the Taliban. They do their things over there. Them in Pakistan can have fun and do their stuff. But the only reason that we have so much protracted conflict with the Taliban is because of our presence in Afghanistan. If we leave, now, part of the Doha Agreement was, now will they honor it? It's hard to say, but part of that agreement was that you are not going to allow these lands to be used to attack, I believe it was the U.S., and I think the Gulf states were specified as well. I think that agreement was negotiated in Qatar, but that was part of the agreement, is that you're not going to do terrorist attacks or any of that shit against us. Like, you guys, so essentially it's like, you guys stay over here, you do your fucking shit, whatever the fuck, we're going to go over here, we're going to do our shit, and we're going to be done. The idea that we're like in this, this long convoluted war with the Taliban, technically, hopefully, they just want their country back. They get their country back, their country. They take over Afghanistan, and then they leave, and then we're gone. We're out of there. We shouldn't have any extended conflict with the Taliban. They're not like ISIS, who are trying to do shit all over the world and are hijacking our weapons to do whatever. This idea that we would just I can't. It's hard to even engage seriously. This idea that we would just start taking all of our shit back from the ANA and then loading it up on a plane and be like, good luck. I mean, like we just can't do that. We can't do that. It's just it's unthinkable that the entire world would sit and watch the United States completely disarm Afghanistan, the Afghanistan National Army, and then just walk away, because even if the exact same result would have played out, well, now the United States would have been blamed for it. Now everybody would be looking at the U.S., and as I just said before, my fake rant, everybody say, oh, well, of course the ANA fell to the Taliban army. Like, you guys took all of the weapons from them. Like,
but no one suggests, like, the weapons, for example, a lot of the stuff that was left was equipment that the security forces didn't know how to use, like Apache helicopters and things like that, right? That's the sort of stuff that we left. Like, no one's saying that, like, you take every pistol, every bullet. And keep in mind, they were so far out-armed and outnumbering the Taliban that no one would have looked at it like a slap in the face if we said, sure, we're leaving you with, M16s or whatever the traditional munitions that, we would give to a security force like that is, but we're taking the heavy equipment. No one would have looked at that as like, well, that's it, they're doomed then. They have to leave the Apaches that they don't know how to operate. And the other thing, like, it's just real simple. Like, regardless of how we splice it, there were predictable things that we could have done, including keeping Bagram Air Base. You say the Doha Agreement. We already failed to meet some of the Doha Agreement's deadlines, which was fine. But the problem would be, like, again, we're still saying that Biden had this choice. People were saying, well, what would have happened then is that we would have never fully pulled all troops out. Who's suggesting that? We're looking at Biden's success as a president. Biden could have had a simple plan that said, look, we're going to take 30 days to get everything out. We're going to get the Americans back. We're going to get our allies back. We're going to take the heavy equipment back. And the best way to do that is to keep Bagram Air Base, which the Taliban has basically said, that's fine. You could do that. And then we could have taken, instead of rushing to get out in like 2 weeks where we couldn't vet people, we could have taken a full month. We could have made sure the people we wanted got out first. We could have made sure that the most expensive equipment got out first. And all I'm saying is we could splice this any way we want. I'm for the pullout. I'm just against how it was done. The reality is I'm just real quick, I'll finish. Yeah. The reality is it was a disaster. Our allies thought it was a disaster, and it probably goes a long way to emboldening our enemies, like Russia that's now advancing towards the Ukraine, and like China that's now advancing towards Taiwan, because they think that we're inept, because with vast superior arms, with far more soldiers, we got our ass kicked in 3 days because of the leadership of our military and the Biden administration.
I don't agree with any of this. We're like, this emboldening our enemies has been like a talking point for perpetual and infinity wars that we've been doing since for how fucking long, since fucking Vietnam. This idea that like, oh, we have to stay, we can't embolden our enemy, we can never retreat, we can never run. Like, making the intelligent decision to pull out, which you already said you agreed with, is good. The idea that like a vastly superior army kicked our army's ass didn't get kicked. We pieced the fuck out. We got out. We left. We left our people. The last I checked, I think there were like 24 Americans left in Afghanistan. I'm pretty sure every American is out. Or basically everyone, like, I don't know if it's possible to get 100% of everything, but everybody that needed to get out essentially got out. In terms of people that were issued special visas or whatever, I don't know what the process is in terms of evacuating those people, or if it was possible even to evacuate all of them ahead of time. That seems like it sends mixed signals. I'm not entirely sure. But like the U.S. knew that it was going to withdraw fully like months earlier. I think in July, Biden was saying, we're gone by August 31st. You know, if we would have stayed past that date, you know, I don't know what the Taliban would have done. Again, there were some problems, but for the most part, we got everything out. We did what we needed to do. The Taliban aren't relying on our fucking weapons. We sabotaged all of those helicopters before we fucking left. The idea that the Afghanistan people that we left there weren't able to pilot those helicopters, but the Taliban are going to come in, fix them, and be able to successfully pilot them. Like, holy fuck, dude. The Taliban go over to fucking Pakistan and they get all their military shit. Or they're friends with fucking Putin. They get shit from Russia. I don't think they're hurting for arms at the moment. The Taliban are incredibly well funded and incredibly well armed. They didn't need to take some fucking scraps that we left for the ANA in order to bolster their forces. The Taliban are doing just fine. They were going to do fine whether or not they got any U.S. arms. Yeah, again, I think we're talking around this. We both agree that leaving was good. I take issue with you saying it was disaster. I don't think that there are any other ways that could have happened. We can sit here and posit that we could have done A, B, or C, but I think that the potential negative fallout from all of those things could have been horrible. I think that a worst case scenario, which was absolutely avoided, and I think even you agree with this, the worst case scenario would have been if we did something and it provoked the Taliban and then we got attacked. And that attack instigated a troop surge because the U.S. public wants to see some sort of retribution. So that is the number one scenario that should have been avoided. Everything else is fucking water under the bridge as far as I'm concerned. We're out. We're done. We're not talking about it anymore. I think that's a massive success of the Biden administration. He did what Trump said he would do and didn't do. He did what Obama said he would do and didn't do. Fucking Bush probably said we were going to leave Afghanistan. He didn't do it. So props to Biden for it. I think that's a major foreign policy success for him.
All right, and I'll just say real quick, the State Department said November 3rd that there are still 400 Americans that are trying to flee that haven't been able to do so. I don't know if they got any of them since November 3rd, but that's the article I read. There's 14,000 people in Afghanistan that still have American citizenship, or I don't know if citizenship's the right word, but are allowed to be in America. You know, my point in Afghanistan is real simple. I'm saying that it's this constant, like, sort of warmongering talking point that we're emboldening enemies. I don't think that just withdrawing would embolden our enemies. I think withdrawing in a feckless way is what emboldens, because they're like, holy shit, these people have no strategic ability with their military. I've already outlined specifically the easy steps that we could have taken that anyone with half a brain would have done to ensure that there was less damage that occurred. Just because saying, well, something even worse could have occurred, that's not a reason that Biden did good.